Welcome, Vols and Lady Vols, to Power T Talk. From the Cathedral of Neyland Stadium to the fanatical landscape of college sports, we're breaking down the plays, the players, and the pride of the Southland. I'm Daniel, your host, here with my comrade and co-host, Zach. Grab your orange and white. Let's run through the tea. It's time to go all for Tennessee. This is Power T Talk. The basketball team did what I think we were both afraid they were going to do. I was thinking back on the last pod, and we both had the tone of we almost didn't even want to talk about the Kentucky game because we knew what they were about to do. Again, I'm not saying we predicted it. I'm not saying blah blah blah, but I could just read it on both of us that we were like, they're gonna do it, aren't they? After all this, they're gonna do it.
Especially after maybe the best first half they had played all year.
Yeah.
And you could sort of tell in that final about 2 or 3 minutes, they let up just enough to get Kentucky a little room. And then start the half, Kentucky just came out firing in the first 4 minutes. And you're just like, here we go. It's going to be a ball game. And it always seems to be that way in Rupp. And honestly, can't even whine about the officials. Tennessee shot more free throws. Yeah. So it wasn't like there was a stretch, I think, in there where they called like 3 fouls in 1 minute. And it was like, here it comes. But I mean, Tennessee got a pretty about as good of a whistle as you can in Rupp Arena, you know, and you just kind of look at the box score. And once again, it's kind of crazy. Tennessee hit more threes than them. Tennessee shot more free throws than them. Right there, I'm like, cool, ball game. I'll take it. Let's go home. But turnovers, not, a couple really bad miscues. And we're going to talk in a minute about the game management, which I thought was a complete disaster. And you got to give Kentucky a ton of credit. They attacked the paint with some ferocity that we couldn't match. I mean, they shot 62% on twos. We shot 36.5%. And there's your ball game right there, because Kentucky was able to finish around the rim and Tennessee missed a lot of bunnies in the second half, especially, and ball game. And then, of course, the under 4 timeout, maybe the worst managed game under Rick Barnes in 10 years, which is a credit to him, because that's really impressive that you can be like, yeah, I can't remember a worse situation in 10 years from my head coach, but God, that was a disaster under 4 from the Vols, the whole team.
Yeah, I mean, I will agree with you that when we had that moment where Boswell got called for that foul that he got knocked on very clearly, and then it was kind of getting away from us a little bit, I was like, oh, this is going to turn into one of those games. But I mean, after that, we had a massive fast break where Boswell wanted to dunk it, and I think you could even argue it was a decently clean block, and they called the foul.
Mm-hmm.
It was not that Rupp just took it away from us. And I think we've seen that a couple times in the past. This was not that. This was, and I kind of mentioned it as we were watching, it was, I didn't really know if it was going to pay off for Kentucky, but every single player on their team, Chandler, Owe, they were trying to make every moment massive, and playing off the home crowd, even as they weren't quite completing the comeback. Every single moment was like, it was like massive hype. And if our team could have just kept executing, it would have been all for nothing. And Chandler hit a big shot at the end for Kentucky, and he was like eager to do that all game. But I think the guy I got to give the most credit to is Owe. He was awesome. He was super physical. He is the exact type of guard that we really don't have a wonderful answer for, especially if Boswell's in foul trouble. And Boswell plays physical, and if they're going to call like basically a block if he's physical, then he's in a lot of trouble in a game like that, because he is a little bit undersized. He has to body. And then, the thing that impressed me most was he wasn't his best defensively. He's usually pretty physical defensively and stays in front of people. Nate took it to him a couple times, and he just didn't stop.
I thought Owe made him work for everything when he
True,
played too.
true.
Like, Nate had 4 turnovers. Other than that, Nate was phenomenal. I mean,
Yeah.
Nate was just, some of the shots he hit, you realize like, okay, this is what Rick was talking about in September. And you kind of saw late Owe used the 22-year-old man strength against the 19-year-old
Yes. It was
Boyd
noticeable.
strength. Yeah. And made Nate really take a tough shot. And Nate had a pretty decent look because of his height. But Owe was fantastic. Aberdeen was really good as well. And Moreno really fought his ass off. I thought Tennessee's bigs actually played really well, other than they just missed a ton of bunnies. I thought Estrella had about 5 tip-ins that hit the rim twice, it felt like. And not like just offensive rebound, miss a putback, like just tip-ins that he normally is really good at. He just couldn't get to go down. And Tennessee, I thought offensively in the first half looked great. And I even thought they played pretty well and just missed some shots. But you could just tell late when teams are just like, cool, we're going to guard Gillespie 30 feet out.
Yep.
We're going to put a body on Nate where we know the refs are going to let him play a little more. And then the other 3 guys don't matter as long as we box out. And that really hurt him. But I thought the most disappointing part was Rick on Saturday.
It's so unusual.
Very unusual. I have a lot of criticisms about Rick in the 10 years. Normally his game management is top notch. Not usually a game to game thing where you're just like, I have no clue what's going to happen. Like Pearl was awesome at game planning, bad at the game management stuff when he was at Tennessee, and Konzo was kind of the same way. Like those guys weren't great. Rick is not like that. Rick usually has everything up there.
A
feel for everything other than, maybe a little late on timeouts. But he's always said, like, I want to keep the 3, in those late games. But I don't even know where to start because there's 4 things I've listed. And it just was so frustrating because if one of these things turns, they win that game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think if you look at the box score, if you're a Tennessee fan, you weren't able to catch the game, and, if you look at the box score, you're going to sit there and think, like, the story of the game is the only people who found anything from deep are Ament and Gillespie, and then the only people who even attempted a 3 besides them are Boswell and Evans. But if you watch the game, it is going to come down to the notes that you have, and I think you just go into them. I'll sprinkle here and there. I have one main takeaway thought on like something I think has to look different in moving forward, but some of this stuff is just like, it's, hey, instead of doing this, don't do this.
I'll start with the rotations first. We got to stop playing Dwayne Brown like a freshman. That he was awesome. And I know he missed a couple bunnies, but I don't care. He had 24 minutes, 12 boards, 3 assists, 3 blocks. He did not play in the final 6 minutes.
Exactly. He's gone.
That cannot happen. And wasn't really in foul trouble either. He had 2 fouls. So no, wasn't in foul trouble. He subbed out at the 6:33 mark, didn't play the rest of the game. Inexcusable. He's their best big man right now. I know what Parra should be, but he does not quite look the same since the calf injury. He played really hard, and I appreciate the effort Saturday. And I understand wanting to have him in some late game situations. He's a senior. He's seen it all. Fine. I don't understand why Estrella and why Carey were playing late, especially if Carey's not offensive rebound. Because if he's not, then he's almost a worthless player out there. And he had 1 offensive rebound. By the way, Brown had 6 offensive rebounds.
He's just, if Carey isn't crashing the boards, he's just taking up space.
Yes, exactly. And it's not like Tennessee was running plays for him or trying to get stuff going for him. And in this game, that was bad because Kentucky's got, a pretty big front line. They play 3 guys over 6'10", so it's a bad matchup for him at 6'7". So I don't understand the thinking there other than one guy's a junior and one guy's a freshman. Like, to me, that was inexcusable. And it's not like I think Brown's out of shape or he can't handle those minutes. He looked fresh the entire game. That simply can't happen. And with Akpara coming back, I'm really scared Brown's going to get 10 minutes a game. And he has absolutely earned playing 20 minutes a game on this basketball team.
I think the The play that stands out to me, I'll just go ahead and jump in with my point because we're still talking about the offensive side of the ball a little bit. When Nate goes absolutely like roadrunner past his defender on the perimeter, and then instead of kind of as much open floor as possible to operate, he basically has to pull up and essentially like has to pull up fadeaway because there's a physical defender near him still. And you just have a dude in the lane. Like you just have a dude on the block where Nate is going to. And I think if that's Akpara, you can live with that because Akpara, when he's healthy, has a really good feel for like being in the lane in a way that he gets a pass or he dunks the ball. There's none of that with the other big that was in the game. There's none of that. There is not a feel. There is not a scoot out to the short corner. There is not a clear out and like, pretend like you're getting position in the post, but really you're just sealing the lane off for Nate. Like there's none of that. When Nate took that fadeaway that missed, that kind of we all had a queasy feeling in our stomach afterwards, he was like facing the wrong direction, not Nate, the post. And the thing that stood out to me the most, and I don't know how we fix it rotation wise, the thing that stood out to me the most was like you have to have something a little more dynamic off the ball when Nate is doing what he was doing. And especially if he's going to start having these big first halves, that is where the second half he can basically play fast break offense in the half court because people can't stay in front of him when he's going and he can make shots. And so if he draws more and more attention, he has to have somebody to pass to. And somebody who's going to dribble a couple times in the post and try to make something happen is not that somebody you want to pass to.
The other thing, too, with Brown, and you bring up a great point about Nate and the spacing, because sometimes spacing isn't just three-point line. Sometimes it's your ability to know what the play is, what the guy with the ball is going to do, and finding little slots on when help defense comes over and getting out of the way and things like that unfortunately number 23 is not good at because he's trying to post up all the time. The other thing with Brown, they have found something the last two games with this little short roll that he could do. He had two awesome alley-oop passes to Estrella that were fantastic that I would expand more because this team has to get every offensive advantage they can get. So if you're not running post-ups for Jalen Carey and he's not offensive rebounding, you literally have zero contributions from him on offense. Brown can not only finish around the rim a little bit and take a couple dribbles, do a dribble handoff better than Carey can. He also has this passing ability that Jalen doesn't have. So this to me has to be fixed. And he did play more minutes than Carey, but Carey played more minutes in the second half.
And that just the biggest key moments, the tight moments.
Yeah, and number two with Rick. So that's the first thing with Rick, like got to play more. Number two, I don't want to just blame Jalen Carey for this basketball game. Okay,
it just stood out in those last six a lot.
It did. It was very noticeable in the last six when he played the rest of the game. He's not a good defensive player, right? He cannot guard the perimeter. Having him in the most important defensive possession of the game and having him trying to rotate to a three-point shooter is a twofold problem. One, he can't do it. So you're asking a player who isn't athletic or instinctive enough to guard the perimeter to try and do it. And two, you never ask him to do it. So you hedge anytime he's in a ball screen action and they can recover back to the screener. So he never switches. And he also doesn't guard perimeter players ever. Usually they'll have Akpara or Brown or Estrella, if there's a stretch four out there, guard him, or they kind of play like a little two, three little zone that it's not really a zone, but it's kind of like, okay, if this guy goes to this area, Carey gets it down low, and in Australia, whoever goes high. So he's in this game. They for some reason have him trying to do this rotation he's never done, and he has no chance. And that's not his fault. That's putting him in a bad spot. He actually recovered pretty decently and at least contest the shot. And yes, he needs to have more awareness, be like, oh, hey, I need to go get their best 3-point shooter. But that also has to be a teaching point where it's like, hey, on the floor before, I think Kentucky called a timeout before that play, if I'm not mistaken. But having him in there doesn't make sense to me. I understand having Akpara in there, and I'm not saying you need to have Brown in there, but why not? Why not have Evans in and then Nate at the 4? That way you have more switching ability. Nate can still rebound. You have Akpara that can rebound. Boswell, we know will go get the rebound.
Yes.
Evans is a good rebounder, which we'll get to in a minute on the free throw. I I don't know why. I understand the allure of carry on offense, even though I think it's a bad decision. I get it because he can offensive rebound, because he has really good touch around the rim, because you can actually run half court sets for him. I get that. I don't understand why he's in there. And you have all these timeouts. So if you want him on offense, you literally can just call a timeout that you have saved to do a defense offense switch if you need to. That was really bad by Rick.
Yeah, I just it's more complicated than this, but like when they call a timeout and especially if Gillespie's guarding the ball handler, occasionally there's going to be penetration on that. Like there just is. He's just not Boswell out there. You just have to have it drilled into Carey's head. Like your job right here is to get to that backside shooter.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Right.
it just is. Okpara is there to prevent the easy layup that you see coming that is drawing your attention. You have to get back to the backside, or they've got exactly what they want, and that's exactly what they wanted. And Chandler finally hit the shot. I was really going back to the same play I talked about where Nate is kind of forced to shoot the fadeaway in traffic, and he nearly made it. And whatever. Even just having Evans out there, not even that Evans is going to be, in the corner and knock down a three or whatever, but just having him out there from a spacing perspective and from there is actually the ability to run a little bit more if you get a rebound perspective, and Nate can handle the ball if he's running a little bit. I really think that needs to be not the go-to lineup, because there are ways that the physicality in the post beats teams down sometimes. And we know that. That's a way we've won games. But there has to be a little more balance in the willingness to let the offense try to be more dynamic. It's not a guarantee that it's going to work, but there has to be an attempt to let some dynamism come off of Nate as he blossoms in this season. And it'll just be a shame if, as he continues to improve, we don't find some way to let him distribute as well. I hope we find a way to.
I don't know what the answer is there, because they obviously have shut down Ethan Berg, and
Yep.
they don't have any faith in Amari Abram. So they have 4 bigs with Okpara healthy. Nate's really should be playing stretch 4, but has to play 3. And they're literally having to play Amari Evans 15 minutes a game. And I don't even think the plan was to have him play in SEC.
No.
He was not supposed to be in the rotation, but they've had to. Cade got hurt. Now the team is broken down. But the other thing I would say there, back to that play, I don't. If I'm gonna have Carey in the game, then I'll just take the size difference with Moreno and just ask him to stay with Moreno, and hopefully that works. And I'd rather Akpara at 6'11" with a 7'3" wingspan try and get out to a shooter, and maybe the length does something. That would be my. If you're gonna have Carey out there, that would be my recommendation, or play a zone. And Rick's not doing that. So.
No, he's not. I mean, Carey can be just like a cinder block out there.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, he was a cinder block out there in 2 moments that we really needed him to be just more in motion. It's not even that he has to shoot a step back from the baseline, just be more in motion. And that's not really what he leans towards. And so it's a combination, I think, of just a really frustrating outcome, but also it just felt like Rick so rarely sets his dudes up to have a bad moment. And the only time he really does is I think, like you said, the timeout thing where he's like, hey, don't look at me, go figure it out.
Yeah.
But those are legitimate growth moments, I think. And he would tell it right to your face. Like, if you look over at me to call a timeout, I'm just going to scowl at you. Yeah.
Well, speaking of timeouts.
Well, yeah.
This was the most abhorrent decision. This is the one that really pissed me off. You get a break because Chandler misses a free throw. He's a 90% free throw shooter. You get about 8 seconds ball off court. They're in scramble mode, and it has been proven that teams will not foul in these type of situations because A, college coaches don't trust their guys, and B, they don't know because it's hard with the crowd as hard as they are to get the instruction into them. To call a timeout with the ball in Gillespie's hand, down 3, I almost thought he lost his mind. I could not believe he did that. That was so mind-numbingly dumb. I almost thought that a player did it by mistake for a half second, and then I literally watched Rick. I was like, "Oh no, Brain, you saw Rick motion to call the timeout."
He called a timeout to try to get in the play that was already happening.
It didn't make sense. You're down 2, cool. Go ahead, call your timeout. Down 1, whatever. Right? To basically give Kentucky a free pass to foul, and then also get to design who they want to foul. And credit to Estrella, he hit both. But Estrella's in the game. He was 1 of 5 before those 2. And they literally double teamed Gillespie and just were like, cool, go ahead and inbound it to Estrella. We'll foul him as soon as he touches it. And of course, JP's not going to, that's a tough situation for him. He's not going to immediately get the ball out. He can't just, throw it out, especially Gillespie's double team. I did not understand that. It made no sense at all to do that. And it was a gift. It was a gift. And I don't know if Gillespie probably hit the shot. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
And maybe Kentucky's smart enough they foul with 4 seconds. Honestly, I think the free throws happened with 13, 14 seconds, I think. Honestly, they were going too slow anyway. They should have been, down 3, you got to get a shot up with 5 or 6 seconds so you can get an offensive rebound and try and kick it back out. They clearly were playing for the timeout. I just couldn't believe he did that. That was unbelievably bad by Rick.
It was so weird when it happened that I thought there was an off the ball thing or a tie up. It really messed with me. I kind of had to do a double take on exactly what happened in that sequence. I don't know. It's one of those that this doesn't make or break the season, but it's just the thing that I kept saying almost out loud to myself was, the thing that sucks most about this is I think we're better than them.
Mm-hmm.
And we got absolutely nothing to show for it. We talk so much when we analyze football about how much you control the game. And it's both of these were at 90+%, or at least 80-some%. And it was it doesn't matter. And I'm not saying oh, we deserve to win, blah, blah, blah. No, we just didn't. We just didn't win, despite being able to hang with that. And I don't know, talk about the last mistake, because I think we were able to cool off on that one because it was just clearly that one felt a little bit more just clearly a clerical error, not a tactical error. So, but it still had an effect on the game.
Yeah, he admitted it afterwards. I don't know why Armani Evans was down on the block trying to box out and get that rebound. One, even if you want Evans in the game, why is Nate not down there? Why is
it was something strange.
Why is your 6'10", 7'2" wingspan guy not the other guy down there? Don't know what happened there. And then 2, Evans in that position. You kind of want him on there because he can hit an outside shot.
Exactly.
So I was fine with that idea. Also, Troy Henderson coming in for 2 seconds for a 3-pointer at the end was super funny. Yeah, I was just put Estrella in there. Estrella, we've seen him has decent touch. But anyway, that was just, I almost wonder if Rick's trying to do other stuff and the players themselves, 2 freshmen, didn't realize it until the rest bouncing the ball. I think that's probably more what happened, but either still, it's just funny how much it's we play 2 bigs 99% of the time.
Suddenly,
by the way, we decide not to the one time we need a rebound.
Yeah, you and I talked about it as we were kind of thinking about the pattern of the season. If we hold on in these 2 Kentucky games, we're winning the SEC right now.
Mm-hmm. I know. It's 8-2. 8-2.
And
You're 8
instead,
5.
we're
You're
middle of the pack.
not going to get a 1 seed with Michigan and Arizona and Houston, Iowa State playing awesome, and you got Connecticut. Like those, that's not going to happen. But like probably looking at a 2 or a 3 right now, and leading the SEC. And now you're like what, the 6th seed line? I think Lenardi said.
Yeah.
So it's tough. It's a really tough one.
It's the difference in like, you might catch. I mean, you could catch like a Purdue or Virginia round two instead of being in that position. And so, and again, that's a long ways from now. Not going to start thinking about seeding or whatever, but but thinking about where we are in the SEC is kind of the natural way to think about it. And I don't know. I did kind of. It's the second Kentucky game this year where I was sitting there in the second half and I was like, I feel like we're going to lose.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I feel like we're going to lose. We're just not. I definitely don't feel like we're going to win. And so, what's the answer? But I was quicker to move on from this one just because I was like, well, we got work to do. I mean,
True.
You truly can't dwell on this. And there were enough bright spots that I'm like, okay, like I'm tuned in. And there's we're a hot shooting Nate game away from some must see TV from him. I mean, he's had a few recently, but I mean, there's a world out there where he puts up 39 one game, and I don't know. There's some, I think, maybe legitimate names being tossed around that aren't Kevin Durant that are more fair, but he's just playing great, and I just hope that we continue to see some of the results of it.
There was a very dangerous text I sent you that there was some Carmelo Anthony that I was seeing in him. Now, that's like the highest compliment you can get within reason, I think. But like the way he plays, where he doesn't create, like he doesn't have that explosive first step. Although young Melo did, but like there was some like reminds me of later Nuggets, early Knicks Melo, where it's just like tough shot maker, like dangerous shooter,
quicker release than you realize.
Quicker release, creates natural space as he goes up, like can pass a little bit, good rebounder. Like you can kind of see the vision. Now, I think that's maybe too much because Melo did lead a team as the number one option to a Western Conference Finals, and if Nate ends up doing that, you're talking top 15 player in the league. So I'm not calling that, but there were some like moments I was like, man, there's some Melo to the game. I can see just like the natural scoring ability. And the other thing I would say,
can I say one thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is a totally different world, but a world where Nate comes onto this team where there is already a Meshack and a Zakai, and he is the freshman,
a real point guard,
which is what Melo was able to do in a completely different era of college basketball. I'm not saying we would suddenly go win the title, but that's how you could see it working, where it's like he comes into a program that is cooking and is the new level they need. Whereas right now, like where he's getting to is setting our level. So it's just a different world, kind of. Go ahead. Sorry.
Right. I would say the other thing, I know Rick isn't going to do this because of their defense. I'm playing Abram or Henderson, one of the two, 10 to 15 minutes a night. They've got to get some more space.
Something has to pop.
And if Brown's going to play like this, and Estrella's kind of giving you some offensive punch, and you're going to play Okpara, you're not playing Carey 20 minutes a night. Like, there's just no reason. And to me, Evans, 10 to 15 minutes is fine. They've got to get somebody to be in a corner. And I would say Abram, he's a senior, and he's not afraid to let it fly, and the percentage is okay enough right now where I can see it. But, yeah, I don't think this rotation that they've chosen, which is basically 8 guys, is going to get them anywhere.
No, and this isn't a knock because he does so many other important things, but Boswell just doesn't shoot enough.
No.
And that's us wishing he would shoot more, not like a criticism. It's just like, hey, dude, you seem decent at it, buddy.
It's like Meshack in the corner. It's like, dude, you can hit him. Like,
yeah.
take him.
And as soon as, I mean, he fills the stat sheet in every other way, and so that's sitting right there for him. But again, like, I just don't think he sees that as his role. I think he sees he's the Meshack role, and he does a damn good job of it. But it's just we gotta have a flurry of points from somewhere.
Yes.
And part of the reason I was so wary of Kentucky taking the big shots the way they were is like if they start making these, we're going 3 for 2 every time, and that is not a great formula in modern basketball.
No, you can't. And what's even funnier is they still outshot Kentucky from 3.
God, I know. What in the world?
It's crazy. And part of that was, I mean, it was all Gillespie and Nate, don't get me wrong, but they've got to get somebody. Because here's the thing. And I'm just going to say, let's say Abram figures it out defensively and he's shooting 36%, which is above average in college. Just doing that automatically makes your offense better, because then that guy that's in the corner guarding him is a half second late because he doesn't know, because he gets caught in the middle. So now that clears the lane for Nate. That clears space for Brown and Jacoby. It just clears more space that you're not getting if you don't run offense for Jalen Carey. If you don't run offense for Jalen Carey, you're literally like, hey, Jalen, I need you to get 5 offensive rebounds tonight to be worth playing. And while he has done it, and they do get a lot of offensive rebounds, that is not a viable long-term strategy to win.
It's just not a system. It's a no. I'm trying to think of what the equivalent would be in other sports, but I mean, it's like if your offense, your approach in baseball was designed around hitting it off a base hit comes from ripping it down the line and hitting it off the bag. Like,
yeah, or
it's not quite
just
that
like
rare, but it's
singles.
Yeah.
It's just it's opposite field singles. Like that. Oh, that's what we're going to do. We're just going to hit singles and try and do rallies that way. Like, it's just not, yeah, you can do it, but it's not a viable long-term strategy.
Yeah, there are games where you're going to BABIP your way to victory, but there are also games where people are going to wonder why, the game went so quickly.
Right.
And
exactly.
so, yeah, I think that it's just it's not a plan. It's an outcome. It's just not a plan. And that has bitten us a few times this year. So, it was a really frustrating game, but there's still plenty of things to cheer. And I know I always pivot to that, but there's still plenty of things to cheer. But man, I was just shaking my head by the end of that game.
It's a tough loss. And it doesn't help when you lose to Kentucky and you actually can't blame refs for once.
Yeah, like I was all ready to do that. When Boswell's face fouled that guy's elbow, I was ready to go there. But the rest of it was just not.
Actually, that was a bad call, but Tennessee got another one too, so I won't complain too much.
Yeah,
but
it balanced out way more than I wish it would have.
They're favored. Yeah, no, absolutely. They're favored in the next 3 games. Then they play Vanderbilt on the road, and then favored in the next 4. So right now they're projected to finish 21-10 by KenPom. They're 16-7. I think if you can somehow get to 23-8.
Yeah.
And then that puts you at 12-6 in conference or something like that. 13-5. Like, I think you'd be pretty freaking happy. But
23-8 with a decent little tournament showing, they're going to be a 5 or 4 seed.
Yeah, if
that's a strong finish though.
That's a top four seed. And who knows, in the conference tournament, you put up 3, quad 1, or maybe 1 quad 1, or 2 quad 1s, 1 quad 2. You do that, now you're talking maybe 3. That's potential. And of course, the SEC is going to be being like, hey, don't leave us out of the top 2. So, I mean, it's possible. I don't know. I just don't think they're offensively capable enough to make noise right now.
No, I think that as a 4 seed or 5 seed, if people start, when the brackets come out, there's going to be some, when they're in that range, there's going to be some like hot shot team that it looks like their offense is going to really compete with us. And there's every chance in the world we get 64 rebounds and just destroy some team. But as far as a run goes, unless we see some changes, it would be much more surprise than expected, which, hey,
how
we're watching, but
You know why? How I'm so confident in what I just said too. They don't have enough offensively because Nate Ament just played the best 5-game stretch for a freshman since Bernard King for a Tennessee
Yes.
basketball player. And I'm still saying that. Like, I just watched Nate Ament and compared him to Carmelo Anthony, and I still don't think they have enough firepower offensively to make noise in the tournament. That's not good.
It's not good. And God, we just need somebody who is willing to, somebody besides Jacoby, who is just willing to shoot 7 threes.
I know.
It just doesn't exist right now.
You couldn't say this back in the day, but now you can. The roster decision to take Berg and Abram and Carey.
Brutal.
And you're just like, literally take those three, like do a 3 for 1. We talked about trades last week's episode, like a 3-for-1 trade. And I'm not even needing a superstar, just a guy that averages 12 points a game and shoots 38% from 3. You're talking national title contender. That's literally it.
You need the pesky 3-point shooter that we all have memories of from a college basketball perspective.
And he's not even that good, but how much better is this team with Chandler playing 25 minutes a night for them?
Yeah.
I mean, and again, that's a nice college player, but that's not an all SEC guy. I'm just literally saying, like, if they had a guy who shoots, let's see what his 3-point percentage is here, 41% on 110 attempts. How much better is this basketball team? They're national title contender.
Like, Oklahoma is pretty rough this year, basketball wise.
Right.
They have a tiny little guard who shoots 8 threes a game at 43% clip.
Yeah.
It wouldn't work with Jacoby, but
Jacoby,
it's just like that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, and they thought, it's just funny. They keep bringing in these transfer like shooters who shoot 40% in mid majors, and then they come in and they can't shoot. Really, it's the Berg. You bring in a 23-year-old professional who can't play in the SEC. That's brutal. Abram, whatever, that happens. Like, you can live with that. Like, that's the name of the game sometimes with the transfer portal. Bringing in a 23-year-old professional and you're like, we're going to get him for 3 years, and he literally can't handle the ball in SEC play. That's pretty brutal. That's a brutal roster loss.
Yeah.
So.
The other big sporting event that happened was the Super Bowl. But it went about how we, I think, generally expected. Credit to you. You had it nailed. I mean, I think there's some conversations to be had about the offensive line, but it was mostly the Mike Macdonald masterclass that you predicted. I mean, you dug up some interesting stuff on just like the absolute stinkers that McDaniels has laid out in Super Bowls in a way that it's just like, oh my God. But they just, I don't know. We talked about the lack of dynamism from the Patriots receivers. The only thing they could get was underneath routes. The only person on their entire team that seemed to stress the defense at all was Henderson, and he wasn't going to make up any gaps on that front. Seattle seemed like they had the 12 when New England's offense was on the field. Seattle seemed like they had the 12 best players on the field.
We like to do this for just in general. If you play that game 10 times, how many times does a team win? Right? If you played that game 10 times, Seattle wins that game. At least, definitely 9.
Yeah.
Just because I'm given the 10% chance Darnold throws 4 picks. And even then, I don't know if it would have mattered. I think it might have been 10 for 10.
I mean, I think that I sat there the whole game wondering if they would try to run Drake May more. I think he just would have gotten killed.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, especially with how hard hitting that game was. That was old school. And credit to the officials. Like,
yes.
Let's let the boys play, and I appreciate that. They did both sides. They let them play a little bit. I think they got rid of the 5 yards. They let it 10 yards on some holdings and defensive pass interference. I had no complaints, though. The other thing, I saw the stat, and I don't know if Will Campbell actually had 14 pressures allowed. That feels maybe a little bit more of some bias, just like watching him get absolutely railroaded in the first half. But Hazel, who's the best right tackle in football, allowed 19 all year. So that puts into perspective, even if Campbell allowed 10 instead of 14,
Right.
that's how much they killed their offensive line. And then like Morgan Moses, who's been a massive right tackle for them, who's been awesome his career, had a great career. I mean, he was struggling their interior. I mean, it didn't matter. That that fumble that May had that sealed the deal was sick stuff from Macdonald. That was they drop both defensive tackles and bring a double cat blitz and have Witherspoon come in on the inside.
That's the
Was
thing.
just like, that's sicko stuff.
Witherspoon in the first, I think it was the first quarter, got home from 12 yards of depth. I mean, that's, I don't know. That's when you just know that there's a difference in like the pressure happens properly and the running back doesn't cut and you just get there. When a guy comes from 12 yards of depth and just pops you, it's like your protection schemes are on a different planet. Like, what is happening? And then, I don't know, it was very interesting because not only was Campbell getting beat, just straight up beat when he was trying to block, a lot of those pressures came off his side. And so I don't know if there was, I mean, McDonald's McDonald, but I just don't know if there was something where it was like, they don't, he knew that McDaniels didn't slide that way, or he knew that they wouldn't roll Drake out enough. Yes, Witherspoon came from the other side 2 times, but when they needed other pressures, they came on Campbell's side every time. And he never once made an adjustment.
No, and the other thing is, McDaniels is like a screen savant. Like his screen designs maybe like his superpower. They didn't run anything. And I know their wide receiver personnel tends to say like, hey, we don't have like we don't have a Jackson Smith and Jigba. We can run quick screens too, who get us 8 yards. And, I know Ramondre Stevenson's more of a drop off guy, but like the fact that, and I know Seattle, they sent for a lot more than what the numbers show because they're not afraid to drop their defensive linemen in coverage or their outside linebackers. So they put a ton of guys in the box. So it looks like 6 is coming and they actually sent 4. I get that. The fact that they just did not run any screens at all to give Dre some easy completions, just to throw him off a little bit, just to get 5 yards here and there was crazy to me. And you got to give credit to McDonald, man. I mean, he just lit up their offensive game plan. They had no answer. Literally, the only answer was when they were able to protect and throw deep ball to Matt Collins. Like they made 2 plays to Matt Collins, and that was it. It was kind of insane.
It was an extremely good showing, and it's what everybody's talked about with him for so long. Like, I don't know, it's interesting. You think about the path that the Ravens have gone on, and it's like maybe the dude was in the building. And again, like, you're not going to fire Harbaugh for that necessarily, but a little over a year later, you fire him, and the dude that you let out of the building just won a Super Bowl. And so, I don't know, they've run that team really well. I think the other thing that I've enjoyed in the NFL recently, and this is true of all sports. It's not saying that they're unique in this way, but it feels like 2 years in a row, probably 3 years in a row. Obviously, benefit of hindsight, but the best overall team won the Super Bowl. Last year, the Eagles, like, of course, Jalen played great in that Super Bowl, but I mean, the strength of that team was their defense, and they took over that game. And, the wideouts showed out. But, like, I guess I mean the best roster won the Super Bowl.
I got you.
And I think Seattle fit that bill. I think maybe the Rams would be the other answer on that, and they were relatively close. But if you just look at the rosters, New England, not to take away the drubbing they just got, but they're not even close to Seattle. And so
they were not.
If they somehow did win that game, it would be like, I don't think that quite adds up to me. And so it's one of those right team won kind of situations, but it's a credit to how they've built that team that they look so strong in so many places.
I'm trying to think of the last NFL team I thought was like, are we sure the best team won the actual Super Bowl?
I was trying to think about that too.
Not to offend certain parties, maybe like the 2020 Bucks. Like,
that's I think that's what makes me think of it though, because there were stretches of time where
and
it's
that was an
like,
excellent football team. I'm not taking away from that, but
oh,
it just,
totally. But it was like just Brady just does this.
yeah, and their defense was fantastic that year. So maybe that's, I mean, maybe that Rams team in 21, I feel like if maybe the Chiefs or the Bills some have won. Maybe I think they might have been the best teams that year in 21 instead of that Rams team. But I mean, I I could after the first quarter, I texted you. I said, I don't know how New England's going to win this game. And we talked about that on the podcast.
You
I'm
said
like,
you don't know how they're going to convert 3rd and 8s, and you were totally right.
right. And the other thing was, I think May was hurt. I think that was kind of clear. He was throwing the ball a little funky. There were
Yeah.
times where I'm like, that does not look like a Drake May throw. And you combine that with they couldn't protect and they don't have anybody at wide receiver, that really changes. Although, like A.J. Brown to New England, let's just go ahead, call that in right now,
Yeah.
NFL. Let's just do that now. So it just kind of, and really Seattle played what, a C plus game on offense, you would
I think
say?
if
Like
you were a
Walker
Seattle
got,
fan, there probably had to be a moment where you were like, could we maybe score a touchdown?
mm-hmm,
Like
yeah,
there, I don't know. I just think about as a fan experience, I would have been really itching to not just settle for field goals. But then by the end of that game, you were like, it didn't matter.
no, it didn't. And I'm sure it's different. I felt confident even when they got it to 12 and Vrabel not going for two.
What in the
Was,
world? Yeah.
I mean, I'm almost glad that it didn't come to that because it just might have been one of those live in infamy decisions. But like for me, I was like, Seattle has this. There's just no way. Like even if somehow New England scores a second, I just don't think they can go down and score 3 times in a quarter on this defense. I'm sure Seahawks fans were thinking the exact opposite. But the other thing I was going to say is I had a problem with Walker winning MVP,
Jim,
and we've kind of, he was awesome. I want to
he
say that
played
first.
great.
He was great. I just did not like that this game was clearly, it felt a lot like in 2018 when the Patriots defense just shut down McVay and the Rams. And it was a little bit of everyone. There wasn't like a Von Miller 3-sack game, Reggie White 3-sack game or something like that. Ray Lewis with a pick six, whatever. And it it was like, well, we'll just give it to Edelman because he had all the touches, which he was great in that game. I thought Witherspoon absolutely should have won. He made the biggest play of the game. He was everywhere. He clearly was the best player on their defense. I don't like this whole, we're just giving it to, at least he didn't go to Darnold. If he went to Darnold, I would have lost my mind. But also kind of crazy, last running back to win a Super Bowl MVP for him was Terrell Davis. But
Oh, wow. Well, because there was the
yeah,
whole thing where the Colts running back should have won, but Peyton won.
yeah, it was a die, I think.
Here's the thing that's interesting to me. So Nicky Memori is a monster,
Yes.
but he almost, how good he's been in this playoffs and the coverage he's gotten for it, I think cost Witherspoon the MVP. And what I mean by that is people forgot, and again, obviously the Seahawks know, but people forgot that Witherspoon is that guy. Like he's, I mean, Memori, great rookie season, blah, blah, blah. But like Witherspoon's been doing this. He is a nasty,
awesome.
nasty, nasty. And I'll say it this way. If Nicky Memori had the game that Witherspoon had last night, I think he would have won the MVP.
He would have. I agree with you.
And so it was just the fact that it felt like an anonymous blah, blah, blah. But it's like, no, this person's not anonymous. This person's been a dog since the moment they entered the league. They weren't in vogue enough and it didn't quite shift that way. And it becomes a little bit narrative. I think if Nicky Memori has those stats, then absolutely you see a defensive player win the MVP. And so again, it defaulted to Kenneth Walker, who's about to get a bag from someone this offseason. But Witherspoon, I mean, a lot of Walker's work was in moments that still mattered, but Witherspoon was like swinging the game in ways that made it completely out of reach. Like he made really, really, really big flash plays.
He did. And again, I'm not saying Walker played that. Like he was able in that first half to get them some points with some incredible runs and that they needed. But yeah, I just feel like honestly it should have just gone to Mike Macdonald. Like, just
Honestly, I'm
overrule
sure
it.
the players were like, "Hey, buddy."
Exactly. Also, how about that Russell Wilson trade?
Oh my gosh.
That's got to be a top 10 trade ever, right?
I didn't realize the pieces. You need to lay them out because I did not
I've
realize
got it.
what all it included.
All right. So they got Charles Cross, above average left tackle, rookie deal. Okay, cool. Witherspoon, who's an all pro talent at corner. Boy Maffa, Derek Hall, two key rotational pieces on defense. They got a special teamer out of that too. I think he's played every game for them. So I can't remember, like 5th round pick. And they got the biggest thing. They got out of paying Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Like they pay Sam Darnold $33 million a year. Like Russell was asking for 55 at the time. That was 4 years ago. So they got out of that. And then I think John Schneider has cemented himself as one of the best GMs the last 30 years in football. I mean, this is a guy that didn't get credit for that first Super Bowl team. It was all Pete. Pete got all the credit. And I'm not saying he didn't deserve a ton of credit, but he kind of got lost in the wilderness. And the organization chose him over Pete, and it was the absolute right decision.
I think that it was underrated how well it was put together coming into the season.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just see things like, oh, if it was almost like a tone of like, if Byron Murphy can be good and if Witherspoon can be good and if so-and-so can be, it's like, those guys are already good. And
Well, I
so
think too, it's
they
just,
just played up to potential.
new quarterback, offensive line didn't come in. Like Gabe Zabel became instantly one of the best guards in football. Like when you can do that in like a first rounder, when you get a guy, when you're like, we have an okay offensive line, then you like insert first round pick, one of the best guards in football. That really helps. And then Jackson Smith and Jigba became a superstar. That also really helps. And Darnold's good. Darnold's a good quarterback. Like I don't think he's better than 8 guys. Don't get me wrong, but he was much better than Geno Smith.
Yes.
So that helps. And, Clint Kubiak did a really good job. And also credit to Macdonald. They had Ryan Grubb as their offense coordinator last year. They did not like what happened, and they let him go and got Kubiak, who had a really good year in New Orleans last year, even though that team did not do well. So that's also a credit to Macdonald for saying, hey, you know what? We got to make a change here. We need to get better. And they did. And so that's part of, in the NFL, getting the organization right and not just relying on your first instinct or your first hire, making the right decision or realizing a mistake there. And so a huge credit to Macdonald. And I think he's going to, he deserves the McVay pub for what he's doing defensively. He's doing new stuff that we haven't seen before. And I mean, and they also did it with a tough division. You can make a case the Rams and 49ers were Seahawks, 49ers, Rams were 3 top 5 NFL teams this year. And they were able to survive it.
I mean, if the Seahawks aren't the favorite heading into next year because people cool off on like whether they can repeat that, or really, I think more so it's like Kubiak's going to be out of that building and you're going to get pilfered a little bit. The Rams probably going into next season as the Super Bowl favorite.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got another battle on your hands. And I don't know. I just thought it was super impressive. I thought you nailed it of kind of the narrative of that game. And I think we're going into next season with a lot of uncertainty in terms of the NFL. Like, I don't think there's a clear favorite, even if we are super impressed with Seattle. And so I think that'll be really interesting and probably make for some silliness. And we always enjoy that.
So speaking of new seasons, I'm going to take over the hosting jobs. How about that? I'm going to switch it a little bit. Tennessee baseball starts this weekend. It doesn't feel right. I know East Tennessee had like 5 inches of snow last weekend.
Yes.
And we had 5, and I'm in Virginia, so it's a little different, but it was 5-degree wind chill or 1-degree wind chill at one point this weekend. So it feels weird that baseball's starting, but rotation got announced, and boy, does that rotation look good.
It does look good. And I'm excited about the kind of switch in roles heading into baseball season and me kind of filling in as the analyst a little bit more. I will say I've noticed a couple smaller schools, like the kind of big launch of the season is happening writ large this weekend, and I'm excited for it. But some of the smaller schools, like kind of D2 or smaller schools, have tried to start even earlier. and every single one near us just had to cancel all of the earlier series. And so it's kind of interesting, like, oh, we're going to get baseball a little bit sooner. No, we're not. And so I thought it was interesting to so formally announce the rotation, but I also think it sets us up to track these roles in a really interesting way. There's other arms that are not included in this rotation that I think are going to make for interesting midweek stuff that we'll get into next week. But we'll go ahead and lay out the rotation, and this will be kind of the teaser for previewing the whole team next week and kind of where I expect things to land. We'll get to see all these guys this weekend. And so you have your Friday night guys going to be Tegan Coons, massive potential, hard throwing righty, had a great run on the Cape, and was like a little bit younger relative to the age of others on the Cape, and got a lot of not just numbers but buzz and how he looked on the Cape, and so I would say not that he's about to go 1-1, but like as good a Friday night starter as any, besides the elite of the elite. The number 2 starter, Landon Mack, a transfer who, again, not eye-popping numbers in his year at Rutgers, but was very young relative to the people he was playing against. You kind of see that now with some of the young pitchers in college baseball. If you pop at all when you're young, you were an 18 or 19-year-old doing it against 24 and 25-year-olds for the past 2 or 3 years. And so we'll see kind of how he rises in terms of his potential, but a solid starter there. And then I think the maybe relatively more exciting one is Evan Blanco, who seems like kind of just steady as they go. He's been doing it a little bit longer. He had, like, from a numbers perspective, a little bit of a step back at Virginia last year, but that was coming off 2 super strong seasons at Virginia, and some nice performances on the Cape in the meantime. And so I think that goes from like massive, exciting first round type arm, solid young starter, and then kind of the old guard, in the rubber match on a Sunday if you need him.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just to get ahead of the preview a little bit, the more exciting part of setting that rotation and why I think that we're willing to say, hey, these are the 3, is the more exciting arms on this team besides Coons might be in the bullpen. And so you have these starters set because you have guys like Arvidsson, who is just filth in the bullpen. You have Bo Rudy. You have Brady Frederick, a transfer from East Tennessee State right down the road. And so we'll fill this out from a preview perspective next week. But I think not to downplay the starters, I like what we added. But the most interesting part of those being so precisely announced is that it establishes clear roles for a guy like Arvidsson. He's not the swing man. He's not the Sunday guy. He is putting fires out. And then I think others like Rudy and Frederick are playing that Nate Snead role where they're going to pitch multiple innings and some outings. I mean, gotcha. I think about Arvidsson, and I'll get into this more next week, but like he had 70 strikeouts in 38 innings last year.
That's cooking.
And he was still right at age or younger relative to competition in the SEC. And so there's reason for excitement. And then next week we'll fill out the rest of the painting in terms of the lineup and where we expect the promise to come there. And we'll have some baseball to review as well. And so we'll see how the series this weekend goes. I'll say this, and you'll hear me say it early in the season. We're going to lose a game sometime.
Mm-hmm.
This is not going to be 23-0 mashing to death, like it has been some years recently. And that's not because Vitello left. It's just because the roster looks a little bit different. But it may be a more full lineup than we've seen in recent years, even if the highs aren't as high. And so I'm really excited to get into it, and we'll give a general review of what the lineup looked like because we're going to see the batting order, but then kind of where we want to tinker with that as well. And mostly watch Tegan Coons pitch on Friday would be my pitch.
Quick question, because I think we're going to talk so much about Vitello leaving, Elander taking over, and the roster. I want to get your quick thought on this, and it could be a 1-2 minute answer. With Frank Anderson leaving, a lot of people talked about his importance of the pitching staff since the renaissance of Tennessee baseball. Do you think it might actually be a good thing to hear a different voice, or is it fair to say Frank leaving is a major concern because he's been such a proven star? I mean, maybe not star, but just such a proven voice in the program.
I think it's one that there were two ways to do it. Frank leaving, I mean, that might be the guy that if you had an empty spot, that's who you wanted, kind of no matter who you were, whether you were some
Mhm.
other SEC team or you were the San Francisco Giants, obviously. And there was even some conversation that he wouldn't necessarily be a pitching coach. He would just be part of the pitching development for that organization, for the Giants. Now, he wound up in that role right next to Vitello. But the fact that he might have been in, the development lab and a coaching role for the Giants, that even was a possibility coming from the college ranks with how we fine tune pitchers nowadays says a lot about his influence and his coaching abilities. I think I like the same voice and promotion instead of like taking the biggest possible swing at a different voice.
Mhm.
That's not to say I have a name in mind that I would have wanted or wouldn't have wanted us to hire, but I think it'll be valuable to some of these guys to carry forward what they've been working on rather than trying to band-aid it with the most flashy possible hire. And maybe that proves faulty, but we were okay with it from the Elander perspective. I'm okay with it from the pitching coach perspective. I wish we could have had Frank, but it's just one of those things that, and you'll hear me say this again next week. If the staff doesn't reach the excitement levels that I just had for it, that's where all the eyes are going to turn. And I think it's totally fair if they do, because pitching was a little wobbly last year and it needs to be better this year.
It's going to be really interesting because I think a lot of people, myself included, didn't really start watching the baseball team until after basketball season was over to fill that weekend void. I feel like we're going to have a lot more eyes with Elander taking over for Vitello in February. I think you're going to see the baseball threads in Vol Nation and just in general talk a little bit more than we've seen early in the year. So it'll be fascinating, and I'm really excited. Could you imagine when we started this podcast 11, 12 years ago doing a full-on baseball
Oh
preview?
my gosh.
And now we are, and it's like absolutely worth it. Like it's honestly with what's going on in college sports, it might actually be even better than basketball. And Tennessee's basketball's been really good too. So
Super
it's not like
exciting.
it's right. It's not like you can say, oh, well, our basketball team sucks, so let's just watch baseball. Like we've had Elite Eight teams the last 2 years.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing to keep in mind as we head into baseball is we still live in a world, this world's not going anywhere anytime soon. We still live in a world where we could be 6th in the SEC and 12th in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Right.
when we catch hands in some SEC series early on, it's like, well, we're going to give hands at some point later, especially if the pitching does come together. And so I don't know. We'll talk more about specific roster stuff next week. I think that a lot of the conversation around Tennessee has been like, oh, I just don't see it from a talent perspective. And I'm like, we still did pretty well in the portal and we didn't really lose anything. In fact, we
No.
have done okay recently in terms of getting guys to campus, besides some obvious ones that were never coming to campus anyway.
Right.
When the biggest question about the team, the conversations I've heard, every single person's biggest question about the team is like, what does it look like in a dugout? I mean, that's fine. I loved Vitello, but there aren't questions about the actual dudes we're sending out there. And I don't know, it's interesting. So many people have absolutely the biggest question is Vitello gone? But then almost everybody respects the ever living out of Elander
Right.
from the time of his playing days and who coached him as a player at TCU, and then obviously how he's been brought up from a coaching perspective. And so it's just uncertainty, I know, but not a lot of the roster questions are actual roster questions. They're
Mm-hmm.
dugout questions. Now, the roster has us 9th to 18th, not 1st to 2nd. But I can roll with that if you see improvement from some of the starters. And
Well, and they had the number one
go
recruiting
ahead.
class this year. They
Exactly.
were bound. They've lost so much. Even if Vitello, I mean, they didn't lose anyone because Vitello left because of the timing.
Exactly.
So it even if Vitello was in, okay, maybe they're top 5 because it's Vitello and the standard has been set. But like this was going to be a college World Series roster anyway. It's just maybe with the change, instead of being ranked 4th to start the year, they're ranked 9th. And that's not a big deal because it doesn't really matter.
It really doesn't. And again, we have to think about the error bars around that. This will be my final thought before the preview. We have to think about the error bars around that. If they're 13th, if they're 10th, if they're 16th, that means they could be 8th heading into the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
They could also be 32nd.
Mm-hmm.
It starts to get into that part of the normal curve where it doesn't take a lot to vary that direction. And so, I don't know. I just think that I think people have to remember how much of a dogfight SEC baseball is. And so
Right.
I think about who I'm talking to when I say this, but try to just watch the damn team instead of, if we don't go Jordan Beck on them, it's a failure. Like, chill out
Right.
with that from the jump, because that's a terrible way to interact with this for this season.
That's just a good rule in baseball in general.
Yes.
It's not football. It's not college basketball. It's a different sport.
You can't predict ball. And this is probably the hardest league in sports, I think.
I mean, this will be better next week, but yeah, I can't think of a comparison. Like, it's just, we just talked about the NFC West and how hard that division was. Imagine if the Arizona Cardinals went
like 3 NFC Wests on. Yeah, gosh, yeah.
Yeah, that is what the SEC is.
So we'll get into the roster, and we'll get into like the razor wire that is the rest of the SEC as well. And I have some thoughts on that.
Last thought, college football wise,
yeah,
crazy news that just appeared over the weekend. North Dakota State is joining the Mountain West football only starting this year, 2026.
I think what immediately hit me, the most interesting thing about this to me is they have famously in recent years been like, everybody wants to think of their pro prospects. This is only going to accelerate that. We know they've been a quality program for a long time, but this is, I think, it's going to be really interesting to see how they hold up in terms of the portal versus losing guys in the portal, and whether we see them, whether the pattern from here on out is you almost don't hear about North Dakota State guys going pro because they get pilfered earlier, or they kind of continue to operate the program in a way that they protect a lot of that and reap the benefits of it and continue to be really quality. I'm just interested to see if this sets them up for a situation where they're just a little bit more vulnerable, even if they obviously probably are a little better financial position after this. I think about the path that a school like Appalachian State has been on and had to go on to continue to grow from a football perspective. But now they're sitting in this place where if they start to develop quality, it's just going to get plundered. And I will see if that happens in North Dakota State from a pro perspective is how I've thought about it.
Also, considering that conference, they could absolutely win it.
Totally.
And it'll be interesting. So you think of that area as well. The Dakotas, Montana, Idaho has had Boise State very successful, right? This is going to be a fascinating experiment. Can they continue having to do everyone on scholarship now, playing in a dome, being in the winter? Can they recruit D1 athletes? I mean, we just talked about, Gabe Zabel. He came from the Dakota area. I can't remember if it's North Dakota State, which is my fault. But you just talk about they've put guys in the pros that have been really good. Okay, I thought he was. I just couldn't. South Dakota State just throws me off every once in a while. So it'll be fascinating. And now we're talking 137 FBS teams. Like we're getting closer and closer to 140, which is great for NCAA football game purposes. But I'm very interested to see how good they are from day one. And you kind of look at what like James Madison did, who was not the powerhouse North Dakota State is, and played a little bit weaker than. I mean, the Mountain West got pilfered. Like the
Yes.
Pac-12, like took a lot of what they have, and so it's going to be fascinating to watch. Like I think they can win the conference in year one. Could you imagine a better story? North Dakota State getting in the playoff. How much fun would that be?
People
Year
would
one,
love it. People would go
it
nuts.
would be awesome. It would be
I
great. And they'd lose in the first round, but who
They
cares?
would
That'd
lose in
be
the first
awesome.
round, but I would, for that game only, I would want it to go back to if they're the right seed they host, and some team has to go
Yes.
play them there. That would be
That would be
incredible.
talk about an environment. Absolutely. So,
So
all right. I think we covered everything.
we'll come back next week with a review of the first series, sure, but a bigger picture college baseball preview as well.
Perfect. Guys, we appreciate you listening. Please follow us, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get it from. We'd greatly appreciate it. Like I said, excited about the baseball preview. Going to be a little different. I'm going to take over the hosting role next week. Daniel's going to be more the analyst or second voice role. So we're very excited about that. Appreciate you guys listening, and go Vols.